listening to your brain on air. The program will begin shortly. Enjoy.
你正在听你的大脑在空中，该计划将很快开始，享受。
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Your Brain on Air. I am your host, Ollie Vogt Larson, and dying in America is now unaffordable. The average cremation without a service, by the way, is now averaging about $2,000. Most Americans are finding it impossible to give Grandpa a good send-off. Yes, while Russia is getting ready to do something, we don't know what. Like, honestly, we have no idea. You don't increase your soldier count and ballistic missiles for no reason. You do it because you want that other language to become a dialect of a Western side of your country. Folks, World War III is cooking up right now. We're keeping our eyes on it and the uniting fronts of the Middle Eastern conflict with the Ukraine-Russia bullshit. America, we've been doing our best, to pretend that things are good as per the usual with us. When the world is burning, we did our best to do it back in World War II. We did our best to avoid entering conflict as long as possible, really. In World War I, we were just like, it's not really our bullshit. It's on the other side of the world. We'd rather not send any people over. We're doing that again, but this time we have a couple people already stationed in the Middle East, so we're already seeing casualties. It's not very fun, and to take our mind off of the brewing World War III conflict that could be happening, we don't know. I'm not going to call it World War III until it actually erupts into something, but it's just fun to have fun with language. And plus, if I'm talking about World War III, maybe it'll get picked up more by the algorithm. That's the fun of it. We as Americans are trying our best to ignore the conflict that we started maybe in the Middle East. You know what I mean? We start quite a few ruckuses over there. Not everything is our fault, but we stir up the sand every now and then. Even while we're trying to ignore the consequences of our own actions, we are unable to give our dying, silent, greatest, and boomer generations a decent burial. You can't even afford a burial these days. We're resorting to bringing back the sky burials at this point. I was thinking all those bodies that we're finding in the Red River in Fargo Moorhead, they're probably there with the family's knowledge and get this consent, because they realize Norwegian burials on the water are more dignified than ending up like a mantle decoration. You lived 80 years to become a glorified vase. When I die, I've said this many times. When I die, I want my ashes pressed into a bust of my head. I want it preserved by the Library of Congress, displayed and maintained by the United States' Capitol Historical Society in the National Statuary Hall collection. Hey, I can dream, can't I? You know what I mean? I'm saying this as somebody who's been to a few funerals recently in the last few years. You know what I mean? It was it's varying. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can afford a funeral home, sometimes you can't. Sometimes, I'm going to be real with you, especially if you're in a military family, it's happening at the VFW, and then they're going upstairs and they're having a couple drinks at the bar afterward. That is about the most, it's nice. It's a nice service. It's an enjoyable time. But you know what I mean? Not everybody can expect we're gonna do lunch and then we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do the procession over to the funeral, the burial site and all that. That's not for everybody. That's not for every family. Sometimes a funeral really is kind of more akin to a wake, where everybody kind of shows up, you know what I mean, wearing their best attire. Minnesota, that means some people are going to be showing up in shorts. I'm just going to be honest with you. Funerals in the Midwest, unfortunately, I've always been the type to wear, I want a full suit at a funeral. I feel like you died. You literally died. And I can't bother to put on something that I wore to a band concert. Everybody else is, wearing button-ups or whatever. Some people are wearing khaki shorts. Some people show up in a hoodie. It's good Lord. It's if that's what rehab got you to, you might as well be back on drugs. Why would I even want you here at this service if you're going to be showing up looking like a fucking scumbag? I'm sorry. That is some people. It's try to look decent. Somebody's dead. I know that you didn't know her perfectly, but Jesus Christ, try a little harder. Let's learn a bit more about this together, shall we? The costs are through the roof. They're insane.
Dying in America is becoming unaffordable. Lanesia Robinson's mother never wanted to be cremated, but her ashes now sit inside her daughter's apartment because the family couldn't afford the more than $10,000 for a funeral and burial.
She didn't want to be cremated, that would have been her first choice, and that's something that we unfortunately did have to do. We would have loved to, bury her.
Funeral and burial prices are up 77% over the past 20 years, compared to a 55% increase in prices overall. Funeral directors say that the rising cost of death has grown hand in hand with the rising cost of living, like increased utility and wage bills. President Donald Trump's tariffs are making funeral supplies, like caskets, more expensive, and spiking food prices due to the war in Iran make it more costly to drive hearses.
Okay, let's be honest here real quick. We need to get back to American-made coffins. Red Dead Redemption, like, I'm serious, like a cowboy-style coffin. And we just are going to go back to stuffing people in little wooden boxes and giving them a burial that's like maybe 3 feet deep. We don't want to expound too much energy because we don't know when we're going to be seeing the next town. We're literally hiking it between like mountains on our way to Montana. And, we have to get back to that mentality. You know what I mean? Back in the frontier days, it was like your loved one was lucky if they were buried deep enough to where the coyotes didn't get them at night.
So funeral homes say they are having to charge families more for the services they provide. Right now, the cost of a single funeral and burial can easily top $15,000. A funeral with a cremation costs around $6,000, and even just a direct cremation without a funeral, a service, or an urn can cost around $2,600. And as more baby boomers reach the end of their lives, a growing number of Americans are having to grapple with these costs.
It's not a fun consequence because, regardless of the fact that you're losing a grandparent or a parent or whatever you're losing whenever somebody dies, because when people die, it's the worst. Not only do you have to deal with the fact that this person is no longer in your life, but if you do not handle their remains properly, you're going to be charged by the state, you know what I mean? But also, if you do not pay for it to be housed somewhere, if you don't pay for them to get cremated immediately, it's a bit of a mess. I'm gonna be honest with you. And if you're a decent person, you have your death sorted out. My death is sorted out. I have nothing to leave people. You know what I mean? I have a will and testament that's basic. It's a Google Doc. People will be able to find it after I die. It'll be fine. I'll print it out. Every couple of years with revisions and whatever you need to do. And. Excuse me, you know what, I'm planning ahead. I'm a person where I've always been like, if I ever do amass any amount of money, I plan to leave it to whoever happens to be around, whether or not I had a kid at that point and whatnot, they can have whatever they wanted. But, more often than not, what am I talking about? As if I'm going to have more lives than this. More likely than not is probably like, if my fiance, then wife, is still alive at the time, they'll likely receive whatever's left. Otherwise, it's probably gonna, like, I'm gonna be real with you. I'm not a big, like, I want to give it all into donations. I want to give it all to, charities where it'll all be siphoned off and funneled into, the people who run the charity for them to buy Bugattis or whatever. I don't want that. So I think I'm just gonna keep it, all in the family. You know what I mean? Boy, the way Glenn Miller played. Songs that made the hit parade, the guys like us, we had it made. Those were the days. I'm going to keep it all in the family. I'll probably just give it to my sister or some shit. You guys should have it, like, written down somewhere because, unfortunately, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, we are all likely to face death at a certain point. I know that there's lies, in the Washington Post or whatever. They're putting out articles. New studies say that the human age could be extended to 150 for people that are born after 1970. I'm like, get real, all right? Most people that are, born in 1970 or something like that, they are on full dentures by this point. There's a lot of these people that are, unfortunately, they've spent their lives drinking Coca-Cola and having, I'm just going to be honest with you. A lot of the country that you're talking about, they could live into their 110s. Most of these folks, I'm going to be honest with you, they have hip replacements by their 40s. It's an unfortunate reality of this country. These people, by the way, are not always the types that are like, I'm hauling lumber up, and I'm roofing or whatever. It's not these people that are like getting hip replacements. It's like librarians. It's like these people where it's like, you're not an Olympic athlete. What did you do? And it's like, they fell one day. A lot of these people, they drink no milk. They're malnourished. Unfortunately, thankfully, malnourishment, it's gotten better since the Great Depression, but admittedly, a lot of these people, because the food quality is just so piss poor, you know what I mean? A lot of these people qualify as malnourished these days, so they just break a hip when they fall on the sidewalk. It's ridiculous. Folks, I'm having fun. I don't know if you're having fun. I'm having a great Thursday. I hope it's a great Thursday for you. The weather, It's a blue sky. It's nice outside. Apparently it might rain later or something along those lines. This weekend it might rain, but apparently it's also going to be very hot Sunday. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting weekend. I'm tired, you know what I mean? I'm very excited for this weekend because obviously it's the weekend. When do you not look forward to it? And I feel good about this weekend because guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It's a weekend of justice. It's a weekend where, like, I can go to bed feeling like there's something good happening in this world. So finally, we're going to have some justice for the close to 3,000 victims of 9/11. 9/11 victim count, full. I need, the full victim count because I want to pay respects to everybody. Yep, 2,977 and the 19 Al-Qaeda hijackers. So, yeah, roughly about 3,000 people dead entirely. It's, well, what are you going to do? For folks, I mean, what else can we say except for we got Osama bin Laden back in the past. That was a fun moment everybody remembers. Popstar made a great song about it. It's my favorite off of that soundtrack. And the U.S. military now, a judge has set the June 2028 trial date for, if you're unaware of this fella, you're about to learn one of my favorite, Arabic names, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the alleged mastermind behind the September 11th attacks. The alleged mastermind. Now, we've actually, if you don't know, this guy we've captured him a while ago, and he's been, alongside other fellas in Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay, where, we did a practice called walling, where, you slam somebody's head into a plyboard or something like that in order to make them just shaken up a bit. Except it wasn't, they didn't have a plyboard. They would slam their head into concrete. At one point, one of these people that we kidnapped for being in Al-Qaeda or being involved in 9/11 was abused so, vigorously that they've been deemed mentally deficient to stand trial because their head is just so fucked up. Because if you think about it, the brain is very similar in texture to like a sponge, kind of a tofu-y, like a cheese almost texture, where it moves around. And if you're not careful, if you're one of those retards that like headbangs to music, you can deform it. You can actually it's floating in a fluid, and if it hits your skull, it's not going to feel very good. The brain won't feel anything. It doesn't have any nerve endings, but you will not feel very great, I promise you. You won't feel like yourself, probably. So this was, okay, and three of his co-defendants also, three of his co-defendants alongside Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the scheduling order was issued by Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Michael Skarma. I believe it's Skarma because Schrama. It sets June 5th, 2028 for the start of the tribunal proceedings at the U.S. Naval Base in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. The judge rejected a request from prosecutors to begin the trial earlier in 2027, ruling that extra time is necessary to resolve extensive pretrial legal disputes. What would those be? I'm curious. So, this is coming after 2 decades where the procedural delays surrounding the defendants who have been held in U.S. custody since their capture in 2003, my birth year. That's the fun thing, is we've had some of these people in custody since before I was born. Since around the year I was born. It's really we never forget. I'm just going to be real. I love it. I love how we're not going to let it go. We're not going to let them go. The trial is also following a federal appeals court ruling that blocked a proposed plea agreement that would have spared the defendants the death penalty in exchange for guilty pleas and life sentences. So, with that deal thrown out, military prosecutors are once again pursuing capital punishment. Legal experts are emphasizing that the long-delayed trial could face further hurdles before the 2028 date. Defense attorneys continue to challenge the admissibility of evidence obtained during the years of interrogation at the secret CIA black sites before the detainees were transferred to Cuba. While the judge's order establishes the long-awaited timeline, both sides must still clear major procedural milestones and evidence disputes before a military jury can be selected. Why is this so quiet? There we go.
Of the 9/11 terror attacks. This news comes just 2 weeks before the 25th anniversary of the day that changed America. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell is following this and joins us now. So, Kelly...
Now, this guy, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, you might not have, a clear vision of who he is in your mind, but if you look up an image of him, you will realize that it's I've seen a picture of this guy before. He has got a very Mr. Potato Head style mustache and head shape. It's kind of cool.
Changed America. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell's following this and joins us now. So,
Kelly O'Donnell, can you please just fill us in on all of the details? Thank you, Kelly. We really appreciate it.
Khalid Sheikh Mohammed stand trial.
It will still be a period of time to go, and it has been a long, slow journey toward justice. A military judge issued a new order tonight that sets the trial date for Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, also known as KSM, for June 2028. That's about 18 months further into the future than prosecutors had hoped for, but the military judge set it to give additional time for the process to unfold. Now, he is accused of being the top conspirator. Some call him the chief architect for the 9/11 attacks. He was a part of Al-Qaeda. He was a deputy to Osama bin Laden. He has been held at Guantanamo Bay for 20 years, and he was captured in Pakistan in 2003. So he and other alleged co-conspirators, 3 others, will face this military commission that is separate from the federal criminal court system. This is about military justice. There had been plea negotiations where KSM had agreed to plead guilty in order to have a life sentence, not risking the death penalty. That was revoked a few years ago. Part of the delays. COVID added to the delays as well. But as you noted, Tom, the anniversary, a poignant one, 25 years, is in just 2 weeks, and it may stun many of our viewers that it has taken this long. The process has been slow. There have been many developments, and the new court date of June 2028 also sets out a schedule for next steps. And of course, I don't have to remind any of our viewers the cost of 9/11. Nearly 3,000 Americans died on that day. Tom?
Kelly O'Donnell for us. All right, Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Nearly 3,000. It's you were 20 short of it. Don't say nearly if it's not really nearly. You know what I mean? That's 20. That's more than a pack of eggs. That's quite a bit. Ladies and gentlemen, never forget, we're going to have our 9/11 special. When is it again? Yes, Friday, 2 weeks from now. Not 2 weeks, literally 2 weeks from now, because obviously tomorrow we have Friday, but that doesn't count. The next Friday would count, and then the Friday after that is 9/11, ladies and gentlemen. So that will be a 9/11 special. Be there for it. We got more to talk about, actually, relating to the Middle East. Not just about the 9/11 terrorists. We're going to talk about the oil tanker that was struck in Hormuz when Trump, he's vowing to continue the war as long as necessary. This oil tanker was struck by an unidentified projectile in the Strait of Hormuz, according to the British military's Maritime Monitoring Group. The strike triggered a fire aboard the vessel off the coast of Oman before the crew members managed to extinguish the flames. All the crew members were reported as safe. No environmental damage has been documented, so what's the big deal? I'm just going to be honest with you. You get hit by... If you are traversing one of the most dangerous areas in the world, what is it? Well, how much is it really a news story to tell me that something dangerous happened there? This is people going, something dangerous. Carjacking in Minneapolis. Obviously, excuse you, the incident is marking the second commercial ship that has been hit in the narrow waterway this week. Trump had previously publicly described the choke point as fully functioning and open. In the series of aggressive statements, Trump vowed to sustain military and economic pressure against Tehran, quote, as long as necessary. He dismissed the timeline restrictions for ending the conflict. The White House backed up the rhetoric by rolling out a sweeping new wave of global sanctions designed to cut off Iran's financial networks, a move officials labeled as an economic onslaught. In response, Iranian officials have firmly rejected the pressure campaign, asserting that they are prepared to withstand years of U.S. sanctions while maintaining heavy restrictions on the transit throughout the strait. Very fun. Persian Gulf news, folks.
Iran war going for as long as necessary as Qatar's prime minister now prepares to head to Tehran to try and further negotiation efforts.
Chief foreign correspondent Trey Inks live in Tel Aviv with the very latest. Trey.
Tel Aviv.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. The Qatari prime minister is in Tehran today to meet with Iranian officials. He is focused on finding avenues for de-escalation, according to the Qatari foreign ministry. We do know the visit.
And we trust them. Why?
Told Al Jazeera that the U.S. is achieving a very big victory, but the war will continue as long as necessary. Another report crossed today of an oil tanker being hit with an unknown projectile in the Strait of Hormuz earlier this week. The international waterway remains a location of tension in the region as the U.S. is still overseeing vessels through a southern route. Still, the IRGC warned Wednesday that the strait would not be opened until the United States accepts Iranian demands.
Iranian.
Look, even now, from a military standpoint, the Strait of Hormuz and the southern route is closed. As I said, our armed forces do not allow passage through it. But under this understanding, through an interactive process, Oman itself will also accept that the southern route be completely closed, and that its closure be notified to the International Maritime Organization.
That was Kazim Baribabadi. I love their names.
We do know that parallel talks continue between Iran and Oman about control of the strait, although reports indicate Secretary of State Marco Rubio is telling allies that the United States is leaning into economic pressure on Iran following a new sanctions package that was announced earlier this week. New images from inside Iran showed lines at gas stations in the country, an indication the naval blockade and sanctions are starting to have a tangible effect. Inflation numbers are also rising in Iran as the currency weakens, now holding around 2 million rial to $1 US. This is affecting the entire population of Iran.
The lifestyle this has created for us has definitely lowered the quality of the life we imagine for ourselves in terms of how we live, travel, and spend time with our friends. It has reduced the level of comfort and the ideal standard of living we had in mind. That's been its impact.
Yikes.
It has also had a major effect on my future plans and on the business I personally wanted to start.
Sorry to hear that.
Regional intelligence sources tell Fox News there is concern among officials in Tehran about the possibility of renewed protests in the country over the economic situation. Guys?
Trey Yanks live for us this morning in Tel Aviv. Trey, thank you.
Thanks, Trey.
Thanks, Trey. We really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, very, very fun. I want to keep it with the White House news, actually, right now, for the meantime. We're going to transition into not Caitlyn Jenner, but to the rapid-fire section of today's headlines. Every time I mention the word transition, I always, regardless of the context of the situation, think of Caitlyn. I hope she knows how much she rules my brain. The rapid-fire section of today's headlines, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not aware, there's a lot of things you need to know about in order to keep your media diet healthy. For example, fun stuff. Like in the White House, we have President Donald J. Trump sitting down at his desk with a printed out photo of Lake Ontario currently. And, I pitched this earlier where I said, rename the lake. I don't care. I actually would prefer if America asserted itself a teensy bit more over Canada and we let them know who's boss. They may provide SNL comedians. They can provide whatever it is they think is meaningful. I'm sorry to say it, Wayne's World isn't as funny as everybody says it is. It's the most positively reviewed SNL movie, like SNL movie that has been produced off of a character that were premiered on SNL. And every other one of them has been awful. Don't even mention movies like It's Pat. Is that what it was called, or is it That's Pat? I can't remember. It's like the androgynous character. It's like SNL movies are never good. So I'm fine. I'm fine with erasing Canadian identity, and they can continue to call it Lake Ontario if they want. That's fine by me. But think of a better name than Lake America. Lake America he's like, we have a Gulf, we need a lake, why not? We need something, let's just name Lake America. Why not, take over Salt Lake, crush the Mormons like the scum that they are, and rename the lake Lake America.
So this is Lake Ontario in Canada and in the United States. But we're going to make a little change. We're going to call it something different than Lake Ontario. We're going to call it Lake America, and all it takes is a good pen and some intelligence. So Lake Ontario, that's gone. Lake America.
He's just taking a Sharpie. Lake America.
So now we have a lake, and now we have a Gulf, because we have the Gulf of America, and now we have Lake America. Without the of. Thank you very much, everybody.
Without the of.
Lake America.
Enjoy Lake America. He's done us a massive favor, ladies and gentlemen. We wouldn't have Lake America if it wasn't for him. And I'm going to be honest with you. Can we give it back? I'm good. I was thinking Lake New York even sounds a little stupid, but Lake York? What about Lake York? That could be fun. I know that maybe I'm the only person because I think that York is just a fun name. I know that it's Old English and whatever. It's fun. It's fun and I enjoy it, and it's better than Lake America. I want to talk about oppression. I want to give somebody actually the floor. This is a person who came across my screen one day. And, I was one to believe that the most oppressed peoples in the world, of all time, you know what I mean? According to my education in the American school system, was either the blacks or the Jews. I was actually incorrect on that. The truest oppressed minority, the most oppressed of all the minorities, was dwarves. Folks, Peter Dinklage has been right. This whole time, calling them an elf is a hate crime. You should be arrested. You should be thrown in jail. You piece of shit.
Yes, people with dwarfism were the original Funko Pops. They collected little people, would have them dragged out of their homes and forced to serve as a court dwarf. Like this king who had this little person gifted to him when he was just a child. And what would happen to them if they refused? Rich people thought it was amusing to look at little people and make them do crazy things, like pop out of cakes or pies, like they did with this man, Jeffrey Hudson.
You can make your little person hop out of a cake for you. This explains all of those scenes from Game of Thrones, the Purple Wedding, like when they have reenacting the, Joffrey on the battlefield, all that stuff. Little people are inherently amusing, and I think they understand that, and that's fine. And some of them are fine with that. Wee Man is clearly fine with that. A lot of other actors, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that they're any less than human beings. They're not. They're human beings just like the rest of us. But damn, the era when it was like a Pokemon card type of a thing to collect, where it's like, I have this one. His name's Julian. He does little dances for me while I eat my Italian 5 macaroni cheese. You know what I mean? I love this. And I wish, unfortunately, I like Freddie Mercury. We've mentioned this on the show before. He used to have midgets, apparently, with cocaine and drinks on little platters that would sit on their heads. Why can't we, if they're fine with it, that's the thing, is if they consent to it, what's the harm? What's the foul?
Dress them in the morning and bathe them at night, act as personal dolls for their children, and even force them into intimate relationships with the people who owned them. And what's worse is most people who record dwarves started when they were children, whether they were bought and sold by their parents who didn't have dwarfism, or if they were forcefully taken. Some royals were even known to force their court dwarves to reproduce so that they could gift their children to other people in the royal family. It wasn't uncommon to receive a little person as a gift. In fact, most people with dwarfism can't trace their family lineages because of how frequently people with dwarfism were split up, renamed, and never seen again by their families. Many people with dwarfism who served as court dwarves faced terrible mistreatment, and there are many cases of people being forced to drink themselves to death because average-type people thought it was entertaining to see an intoxicated little person. Although the Funko Pop line might have been funny, it's important to remember that these were real people who wanted to live normal lives, but because they had a visible difference, were forced into lives of enslavement. Although we don't have court dwarfs now, do we have equal opportunities for people with dwarfism, and are they seen as equals? Or do we still treat people in the same ways that some of these people did?
That's a great question. This man, his account's called Dwarfism History, and I feel educated. I feel fantastic. I feel like better about myself. I know that I'm taking this as an opportunity to be like, look how good a person I am because I care about little people causes. I'm not doing the song like that. Dewey Cox is gonna do. I stand for little people in the sense where I think they should have rights. I think they should have whatevers. But I'm like, we shouldn't have to reduce the height that stairs are. We shouldn't have to, I'm going to be honest with you. We're not going to do ramps. We're not going to do little sets of stairs. We're not going to do little walkover freeways, all of these fun little paths for them to take and whatnot. It's not like we need to, there's not enough of them to where it's like we have a second race of people that are completely different. Like they are 2 feet tall on average. We don't have that in this world yet. Unfortunately, it would be cool if we had so much height variation, if we had people that were 7 feet tall, if we had people that were 2, if we had people that were 5, and that was kind of in the middle, but if we had 10-foot tall people, that'd be fun. That'd be a fun society to live in. It'd be like you would have to design infrastructure entirely differently, and then maybe I'm just going to be honest with you, there would be discrimination based on it. It would be like, I'm sorry, this bathroom can't be used by you if you're over the height of 5 foot, whatever. And I don't know. Am I fine with the idea of racism based on height? I kind of am. am. I kind of am. Name one person over the height of 6'3" that you found to be pleasurable. Name one. I'm sorry. Can you? Can you? Exactly. No, you can't. And name anybody under the height of 5 foot that you have found worthy of your time or conversation. None. Exactly. So I feel like all of us that are normal, all of us that are between 5 foot and like 6'3" we should take over society, and we should make it so that we ourselves, it's kind of like white supremacy, but it's height supremacy. I think that's exactly what we should be permeating this throughout the world, ladies and gentlemen. Regardless, despite the fact that I would like to be the Hitler for this cause, we have to move on. Shaquille O'Neal was in town for an event at the Boys and Girls Club, and he has some words for Care 11 News, Minnesotans at large. I don't know. He's here, I guess.
I think Minnesota reminds me of you. Gorgeous, beautiful, and very nice.
Smooth.
Been very hospitable here in Minnesota, so I love you guys. And when I talk about Rudy Entertainment, I'm just trying to ruffle feathers.
Brother, I don't know what you're trying to ruffle feathers about. You can't ruffle feathers. You're a relaxing presence. You know what I mean? He's kind of like, it's like seeing Santa in a way. Folks, St. Paul, they're removing flock cameras because residents, they have privacy concerns, and they're like, we don't love how much your surveillance state is growing with our, not exactly our approval or our consent. We don't love the idea that anybody could maybe pay data brokers to know where we are. We don't know where any of this data is being fed to. It seems like it's up for grabs for anyone in the shadow realm. We're good. And then, St. Paul maybe is they might be privately a little sad about this. I will give them credit, though, that they're taking the hard steps.
Won't have the high-tech help from flock cameras after residents shared their concerns with the surveillance tools. The city council held a special meeting last night with a focus on flock cameras and drones. Police have been using these tools to solve and respond to crimes. Residents have been concerned about surveillance and access to their private data.
There's no reason to trust any claim that these surveillance companies are making. There's no reason to think this data will be safely and securely stored. There's no reason to accept that this data collection is somehow limited to only license plates or bad guys. We don't need this in our streets.
I am of the opinion that these flock cameras are unconstitutional.
So, last night, the mayor of St. Paul and the city's police chief announced they will be taking down the 2 flock cameras inside city limits. They also want state lawmakers to come up with standards that help balance privacy and public safety. The city did not mention any changes to the use of drones.
Okay, let's be honest. If you have an Alexa in your house, if you have, any of that stuff in your house, you're already under constant surveillance. You already have them watching you 24/7. What difference would it make, if they were watching you every day in the streets? That's what they want you to think. They want you to go, I've already given up everything. I've already given up all my privacy. Why don't I just let you watch me when I'm driving everywhere? Folks, I'm glad that there are some people with some common sense out there still that are fighting for the idea of privacy, fighting for the idea of the Fourth Amendment. I'm glad that there are still people out there that think before they just blindly accept whatever is served to them. There's a lot of those people. There's a lot of those people that go like, well, I guess if it's just used to catch bad guys, I'm not a bad guy. I love it. Folks, I love it. And speaking of St. Paul, there is a plan to make downtown St. Paul a destination city. What does that even mean? It apparently means making it a desirable place for people to come and, it's a fuck going to Minneapolis. You want to go to the Mall of America? You want to go visit the George Floyd Memorial? You want to go, do any of that bullshit? No, you want to come to St. Paul and you'd want to, I don't know, the carjackings are bigger in St. Paul, I'm pretty sure. That's at least what I know.
Big changes are coming to downtown St. Paul to improve safety and address abandoned buildings. There's a new position called community prosecutor. Also, $15 million is earmarked to transform dilapidated buildings into hubs for new businesses. Reg Chapman has more on the plan to make downtown St. Paul a destination for all to enjoy.
It's an effort to clean up nuisance crimes in downtown St. Paul that make people think twice about visiting. The new approach, a community prosecutor, responsible for taking on quality of life issues that impact business and the people who live and work in the capital city.
The kinds of things where like, oh, you wouldn't want somebody to go to jail for that or anything like that, but like, hey, you can't do that in downtown. We all have kind of a social contract here, and it's part of the lower level laws that we have, so let's get those enforced.
2 years ago, residents voted to allocate resources to the city's attorney's office to focus on crime downtown. The new position will bring prosecutorial resources together with law enforcement, city departments, and community partners to deal with issues that matter the most to people.
And we think that like when we're all working together with our DID ambassadors and the residents of downtown and the city of St. Paul, the police, the security teams, all that working together with social service providers, that's how we're going to really make the kind of progress we've been making, but we want to continue that trajectory and make sure we continue on that really positive path of improvement.
So, quality of life crimes. Essentially, if we see you smoking in a non-smoking area, we're going to throw you in cuffs, we're going to slam your face on the pavement, you're going to have your children recording you because it's like, get this on Facebook, baby, get them on Facebook. We're not going to worry about the idea that there's DV, domestic violence, you know what I mean, sexual assaults, rapes, all that sort of stuff. We're going to, like, listen, that's not quality of life crimes. Those happen inside of the humble abodes. We are talking about people who are just like, hey, you know what I mean? Are you, is that a jaywalker in an area that, like, I understand that the crime rate might be ridiculous here. Like, there might be people getting the cops called on them because they argue in front of their kids. The kids are crying at night. The neighbors are listening to it, whatever. We are focusing on quality of life crimes. You know what I mean? Social contract shit. If I see you littering in the city of St. Paul now, their attitude is, we're going to kick you in the head, we're going to kill you, we're going to kneel on your neck, you'll be the next George Floyd, and it won't be because you tried to, resist arrest or anything like that. It won't be because you, used a counterfeit $20 bill. It won't be because of anything. It won't be because of that. It'll be because you littered, folks.
The creation of the Downtown Investment Fund prompted the Bush Foundation and Experian to put money up to help St. Paul's redevelopment efforts. The St. Paul and Minnesota Foundation is adding $15 million to the fund.
That's a commitment to downtown St. Paul and some of the distressed properties that we have that we're addressing through the Downtown Development Corporation. And the idea is these are sort of below market investments so that we have the patient capital we need to turn these properties around and really transform the core of downtown St. Paul.
A collaborative effort to clean up crime in buildings in disrepair to change the feel and look of downtown St. Paul.
Everybody's really working together to make this transformation happen.
In St. Paul, with photojournalist Chris Cruz, Reg Chapman, WCCO News.
No more people sleeping in abandoned buildings. We're going to get that cleaned up real quick, ladies and gentlemen. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to, have these things that are called tear gas. We're going to throw them through the windows of these abandoned apartment buildings, and we're going to smoke them out like cockroaches. We're going to smoke out the homeless people. And that's how we're going to restore downtown, ladies and gentlemen. I can't wait for it. Folks, our final story for the day. I'm really excited for it because Trump is lifting tariffs on imported beef. I'm excited because it's going to tank the beef industry at home. And this is a good thing. Do you know why? Because in the 1970s, we had something very similar to this. We had the dairy crisis. Following the 1973 oil crisis, the soaring inflation, dairy prices, they skyrocketed by like 30, 40, 50-something%. It got ridiculous. So the government, to protect the consumers, the federal government lowered dairy import quotas to flood the market and drive down prices. And then in the 1974 crash, the policy worked a little too well. By 1974, milk prices plummeted so low that American dairy farmers faced immediate financial ruin. So, to save the farmers and to basically fix their fuck up, the government utilized the Commodity Credit Corporation, the CCC, to trigger mandatory buyouts of unsold dairy. So, if you're familiar with the government cheese, a lot of people were all about, what they're going to do is they're going to put the entire steak industry, on the ropes. They're going to have the beef industry people, really throwing in the towel. They're going to be like, fuck, we're really not getting, or earning our money back because, Mexican beef that's given people, mad cow disease is so much cheaper to import in. It's going to be the episode of Community when they eat the taco meat and become zombies. That's what it's going to be because of this bill. It's going to be low quality meat that's coming in from like China and shit like that. Half of it is horse, unfortunately. And it's facing a lot of pushback, including from within his own party. He announced a temporary rollback on tariffs for imported beef. Under a new executive plan, the administration will allow up to 300,000 metric tons of foreign beef into the United States duty-free over the next 90 days. White House officials say that the emergency measure is aimed at directly at providing quick relief to American families struggling with record-high grocery bills and soaring meat prices, instead of helping the meat markets at home. He wants the meat markets abroad to thrive, but then here's the thing. Once all of the meat markets and all of the individuals that are dealing it in the United States are forced to sell out to Uncle Sam, we will see the grand return of Trump steaks. Folks, I had this theory. I was on the phone with my mother the other day, and she brought up something. She was like, yeah, you see this tariff thing that he's doing with the beef? And then something clicked in my head that moment. I was like, this is all a grand plan so that he can relaunch Trump steaks. Trump steaks will be very similar to the Trump healthcare bullshit that he tried to launch. It'll be very similar to a lot of the other Trump programs, and it will carry his name. It will be Trump Steaks for America. Beef for freedom, ladies and gentlemen. This is right after, by the way, U.S. cattle inventories have plummeted to 75-year lows following severe multi-year droughts and rising operational costs. The administration argues that bringing in discounted foreign beef will help bridge the supply gap while domestic herds recover. Agricultural groups and cattle associations are warning that the influx of subsidized imports will actually undercut American ranchers. So, the decision is also triggering a rare public criticism from the Republican lawmakers representing key agricultural states. GOP senators and representatives from states like Wyoming, Nebraska, and Montana are arguing that flooding the domestic market with cheaper foreign meat puts local producers at a distinct disadvantage just as they work to rebuild their operations. So, despite the pushback, the White House is maintaining that lowering everyday food costs for the consumers is remaining the top priority. So fuck all you farmers.
This is a controversial move, but despite all of that outrage from Republicans and ranchers across the country, the president is moving forward with this, suspending tariffs on ground beef imports for about 90 days until after the midterm elections. This is all in an effort to lower prices for the American family, but of course this set off a firestorm of criticism, especially in the Republican Party. So Senator John Barrasso, the number 2 Republican in the Senate, said Americans want U.S. beef on the table, not foreign imports.
Agreed!
Of Arkansas called this action ill-advised. Others in very competitive Senate races, like Congresswoman Ashley Henson, say that this is just a flat-out bad idea. Now, notably, the administration is not saying where this beef is coming from. The president did not identify any countries in his...
It's coming from Kushner Industries, packaged in Albania. I'm sorry to say it, this will be child labor packaged ground beef. And people will be like, they're going to look at the labels, they're going to be like, fucking 10% lean, 90% fat? What the fuck is this?
Proclamation, and notably the agriculture secretary, whose job it is to oversee farming and food safety, said that she wasn't privy to that information with.
And Rachel,
Trump wants your steaks to cost about as much as a chapstick. He wants it to be like $1.26 per pound beef.
With the midterms just over 2 months away, a judge has lifted a block on President Trump's executive order on mail-in voting.
Yes, and this is far from over, but at least for now, a federal judge has cleared the way for the Trump administration to move forward with this restricted mail-in voting executive order that would require a national registry to have that with eligible voters, and then it would bar the U.S. Postal Service from then delivering mail-in ballots to anyone who is not on that list, but more legal challenges are certainly expected with.
Not an awful idea.
Rachel, thank you.
It's an idea. It's not an awful idea. It's just an idea. He seems to have a lot of ideas. They range in awful from terrible, awful to terrible to, sometimes decent, sometimes halfway decent, whatever. I'm going to be real with you, and I'm going to be real with you if you have mouths to feed, if you have a spouse, if you have kids or whatever. You'd be better off eating crayons the next few months. The next 90 days, I'm sorry, the beef quality is going to be in the shitter. And you, by the way, it's all going to be worth it when we see the grand return of Trump steaks, only available at the Shopper Image, ladies and gentlemen. The Shopper Image is the only place you can buy them. All right, I'm calling it good, right? This has been a good Thursday. I think I feel good about it. I'm going to go and eat this Italian 5-cheese macaroni. It is special select from Aldi's. I know, Aldi's. It's mid-tier, and I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it's cheap, and I live in an area where it's like, it's the best that I have. I don't know a person who owns cattle right now, unfortunately, and I don't know anybody who's harvesting a massive, what are they called? What do you call a pack of swine? I will call it that. I don't know anybody who's able to sell me bacon anytime soon that is fresh off the bone. So folks, don't judge me. We're all trying to do our best. Eat healthy and avoid fast food. If I catch you, by the way, I've been off of fast food for the longest time. I haven't gone to McDonald's ever since I promised you that I wouldn't, and I hope that you are maintaining the same. Listen, I'm not telling you how you need to live your life. I'm not telling you anything like that, but you already know that it's bad for you. And I hope that you're taking care of yourself, and I hope that you're doing well. And you know what? I don't care that I'm ending this Thursday with a little bit of a rant, a little bit of a scold, because you know what I mean? It's a Thursday. It's not a Friday. We don't have to end it on perfect vibes. Thursday is also like, hey, you know what I mean? You're still an adult. You got to remember to take good goddamn care of yourself. Do you know why? Because, Thursday is a day for tough truths. Thursday is a day for reminding you that if you reach for that extra cookie, unfortunately, it might rub an extra 12 days off the end of your life. And those are 12 days that you could be spending with your children. Those are 12 days that you could be spending, enjoying yourself, enjoying life. There's so much to enjoy, folks. So I guess we are ending it on a bit of a joyous note. If you've enjoyed today's joyous video, I've had a wonderful time gathering these stories for you. I hope you had an even more wonderful time listening to them. If you'd like to be there for our final episode of this week tomorrow, and then we're going to be back at it again after this weekend. We got to give you some time off. I get it. I can be a lot, so I always give you a weekend, so you just can take a breather, because I get it. I talk a lot, and I demand a lot of your attention, whatever. It doesn't matter. I appreciate the fact that you give me so much of it. I love you all so much. I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your Thursday night. If you want to be here for tomorrow's episode, subscribe if you want more, like if you liked it, ring the bell for notifications. But in the meantime, I have been Ollie Vogt Larson with your Brain on Air. Thank you all so very much for listening. I will catch you in tomorrow's upload. I don't know what else to say. In the meantime, bye-bye.